Welcome to another episode of Transformation in Trials. Today in the studio with us we have Lionel van Holle, who is the founder of Open Source PV. Hi, Lionel.
Good morning.
Today we're going to dive into the topic of open source solutions for PV signal detection. And Lionel, setting the stage for our audience, can you tell us more about the opportunities of open source technology such as R in life sciences?
Yes, so I think first it's an opportunity in life science to get away from SaaS, who has been really there for a long time and kind of monolithic software in the industry. So it opens the gates to different languages, and each of them has different strengths and weaknesses. So it's good that life science can now pick it up where it's more useful, first of all. And then we get the usual benefits of open source technology. First, there is the transparency. We can see what's the code behind it. We can also benefit from parallel development. For example, when you have open source development, there is no software roadmap where they pick up the features which are the most requested by the different potential users. It can go in all directions, and it's very good. So you can benefit from what has been developed in the field of agriculture or different areas compared to life science, and it really helps with, I would say, cross-fertilization, like benefiting from other fields in terms of methods or what has been developed. Another advantage is the limited cost. The SaaS licenses are very expensive, and then these open source technology like R or Python, they come at no direct cost. There is maybe some training cost or maybe some validation cost, but no license costs. So that's the opportunities I see, and it's already a good start and a good motivation to dive into open source technology in life science, I would say.
Mm. I would be curious to hear your opinion on why have we been so dependent on SaaS before? Why are we only looking at adopting open source technology now?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it boils down to the fact that SaaS has been kind of pre-approved by regulatory authorities. They do not challenge really. Uh, when you submit a dossier that has been generated by SaaS, they don't challenge every procedure. They kind of trust SaaS. So it's an easy way in terms. So I think the pharma industry follow the easy way because there is a lot at stake at that
Mm.
moment. They don't want to jeopardize, for example, 10 years of product development, just making a bet on alternative language for programming. But now there are more and more examples and collaboration between the FDA and some big pharma companies. So regulatory authorities also send signals that they are open in getting submissions in open source technology languages.
Mm. That is an interesting development. In your experience, does that also mean that life science companies are becoming more comfortable with using open source?
Yeah, I think now we have seen a company like which is the biggest one. They even developed R packages and what's the name? It's one of the big four. Uh, so it's not Merck, it's not Pfizer, it's not Sanofi, it's the other one. Jeez, can you help me out in this one? You know the big five companies. It's in the top five. I'm
Uh,
pretty sure. It's
wait, wait, we have. Is it Swiss?
it's Swiss. It's based in Basel, and
uh, there's a Roche.
Roche, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, Roche. So they were really uh, they were really at the start of this movement, especially in the clinical trial setting,
mm,
even developing specific package for ADAM and SDTM, generating them. And they are collaborating with the FDA. So yeah, I think it's I think there was also a, a new statement that the first dossier submission entirely made in R was done a few months ago or
Oh,
a year
wow.
ago. So it's really moving forward. It comes with a bit of challenges, like how do we validate potentially obscure libraries we can find in R when they are not in CRAN. But there is definitely openness, and the designs of the clinical trials becomes more and more complicated. So we can really benefit from what has been developed, should it be in the academic or in some other places.
Mm.
So yeah, there is definitely an opening and some success already.
I would also be curious to hear your thinking about the competencies required uh, within a pharmaceutical company to make use of these open source technologies. Because historically, we've hired a lot of SAS programmers who are comfortable with SAS. So,
Uh,
what do you need to be able to use open source?
uh, I'm gonna make myself a lot of enemies, but initially the SAS programmers they were not programmers by um, they were not they didn't follow uh, um, an academic profile of programming or IT. They were coming from different places. They were coming from um, um, biology, medicine, and so on. So it's really it was already a group
Mm,
of very diverse people who learn very late after academics some programmings, and they were used for programming activities in the life science industry to start with. So that was my experience like 15 years ago. We were coming from very different fields and different, very diverse profiles, and almost none of us were coming from the IT
mm,
or coming from informatics or something like that. So SAS is a bit already uh, not really compatible with the programming landscape. It's a bit strange. So with R, it's even easier because it's a bit similar, but they have, I would say, a better programming profile. Those who come with R or Python programming skills, because it's an actual language. SAS is it's a bit strange. It's really for almost a specific purpose. Um, so there is no difficulty to adapt, and the beauty of it is that you have um, a huge supply of potential R and Python programmers compared to SAS, where actually what was needed was to have um, people skilled in SAS, and it was notoriously not these trainings were notoriously not given in the academics because it's a very expensive license, and they didn't buy this license, so they prefer to teach R or Python to the students. So you have by default a bigger population of programmers coming out from schools and university. So it's even easier for the pharma companies to get R profiles or Python profiles compared to SAS profiles, where they needed to invest some time and money in in educating them in SAS language. So it's even easier, I would say,
mm.
as a summary of my long elaboration. Sorry.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And Lionel, we met at a conference where you were telling me and the other conference participants about this cool solution that you built for signal detection for
Mhm.
pharmacovigilance. Can you tell us more about the solution that you built?
Yes. So the objective of open source PV is really to build a suite of tools in pharmacovigilance, a suite of tools using open source technology solely as an alternative to what's currently existing in the market. For the moment, the pharma companies, when they have a good pipeline with I don't know 10 products, for example, with some of them in post-marketing setting, they have one choice if they do want to perform quantitative signal detection. Either they buy some suite, which is very expensive for good reason because it's a niche, so they cannot really uh, make it cheap because it requires investment to be built, and there are a few customers only, so it's a very expensive solution. or they build it on their own. But again, maybe they don't have the time or the resources to do it internally. So what I want to do is really provide an alternative, which is building a suite of tools using open source technology, which the effect of it is that it's going to be relatively cheap because you don't have license cost because you use open source technology, and you can benefit from parallel development. I can build, for example, myself features that are not really um, picked up because they would satisfy many users, or some others could build new features, and we have some parallel development then of new functionalities, which is kind um, of nice because otherwise it's very few customers, and then they really want to invest on the biggest and the most appealing features otherwise in the traditional software development. And for the moment, there are some modules on Ver, so that's the spontaneous report database for vaccines, performing the steps of data management, so like cleaning the data, removing duplicates, mapping to the latest version of the MedRA dictionary. And then on top of that, you have some signal detection methodology, so the traditional disproportionality, but also a method I developed 10 years ago. It's the time to onset signal detection. And then you have a Shiny app on top of it,
Mm.
which allow the final users to dive into what has been flagged as quantitative signals and understand better if there is some potential causal relationship. I have the same for FAIRS, so vaccines, drugs. I also build a standalone signal detection system where the pharma companies can load their own data. So you can easily export the minimal data required for running this proportionality analysis. It's just a product field, the event field, the case field, and a few other fields if you want to benefit also from visualizations. And they load it like it's a basic Shiny app. You upload this file, and then after a few seconds, it's gonna generate this proportionality scores and some visualization, a bit more minimalistic than the other, but it does the job, and it doesn't require an IT project. I love my IT colleagues, but it's uh, it's also the idea to be more agile. If you want to set it up quickly and quickly assess the benefits, maybe before diving into a full IT project with full implementation between the spontaneous report database and this new system, then you can quickly benefit and assess the value with this product. And I have a few, too many others in the pipeline, too many for my free time, but I also would like to invest on visualization of clinical trial data for safety review. And some nice work has already been done, and I would like to make a good usage of it to complete the suite.
Mm. How has this been received by pharmaceutical companies? Have people been excited that they can do things themselves without having to do an IT project?
Yeah, so for the standalone signal detection, I got one customer that was really happy. The fact that they could really benefit from the time to onset signal detection relatively easily without diving into a huge project. Also trying to convince potentially the software provider that's going to be useful, because to be honest, this method of time to onset signal detection works better for vaccines than for drugs. So it's not very interesting for the traditional software companies to invest on it because
Mm.
they suspect that most of their customers will not be interested. So if they do it, they make it they charge a lot the potential
Mm.
requester because they see it as some features that's going to be only useful for one customer, and generally they even consider it as a derailer. They want to have a roadmap that's not going in all directions. So they were happy to have this ability to quickly see the results. Um, but yeah, I feel a bit more like an artisan compared to an
Mm.
industrial when I'm doing this kind of project, like saying, yeah, I can carve something like that, but it's a bit like an artisan sometime. But it's good. I like it. And yeah, Otherwise, yeah, some of the difficulties is also deploying these solutions. So, for example, the standalone signal detection where they can upload their own data, I had to find this solution because there is generally some concern about data sharing. These data
Mm.
are very sensitive, and it comes with many ISO or SOC 2 certification for them to share the data. And it was very complicated for me to invest time trying to get this certification. And I found this a nice trick where they upload their own data on the system. So they can provide the code standalone, but they can then deploy it internally on their own EC2 instance on Amazon, and they control the environment, and then they upload, and there is no data sharing.
Mm.
The other two solutions, they are with open data. So it's the FDA or the CDC releasing the data. So it's open. We don't have these
Mm.
potential concerns. But for a pharma company, there is the potential concern. But the upload data yourself solution, it's kind of a nice one, and it's a way in between to mitigate the risks. And yeah, I like it.
And that's a smart solution for a problem that could become very complicated.
Yeah, and I see it more and more coming, like the
Yeah.
shiny apps where people can upload their own data. I see it more and more often. So it's not a unique solution from me. I think many people are converging to this way of doing to mitigate the risk of data sharing.
Mm. Uh, how did you land on the pharmacovigilance space? What made you curious about this specific kind of data?
Oh yeah, I worked in that field for 10 years before starting open source PV. So I discovered the field like when was it in 2010 or something like that, and I built a solution for an internal solution for GSK vaccines at the time. Uh, they, 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 they stopped using Oracle products, and I advocate that it could be done internally because I was a SAS programmer and I was like, yeah, we can do the job of data management with SAS and we can do the visualization with Spotfire. Let's combine something together. And it was the solution used for 4 or 5 years in GSK vaccines. And then when I left, I was like, oh, I, I want still to be able to master this kind of tools, but but let's do it in open source because I could not really afford to pay a SaaS license and Spotfire for a pet project. So I did it and it was working and it attracted some customers. And now looking backwards, I think R can do more things than SAS and Shiny can do more things than Spotfire. So, and it's the same environment. And so, and when I see the development of the new features of Shiny over the years compared to the development of new features of SAS, I guess I bet on the right horse.
Yeah. Uh, let's talk more about this parallel development, where multiple teams or people are developing different functionality on these open source platforms. Uh, Maybe a very basic question, but how would one find the relevant type of code that one needs?
Oh yeah, that's very difficult to find the right package or it's really yeah, there is documentation, of course, but you still rely on your search engine to find it and what are the good keywords to put in Google. In that sense, ChatGPT at least was good, not less relying on the keyword you are using. That's a nice improvement. I didn't try to use ChatGPT to look for a nice package. Also, there is this problem that what's feeding ChatGPT is not really recent data. So I guess
Mm.
you might miss the recent package released in 2023. But yeah, it's very difficult. Sometimes me, I go to conference. I went to a very nice R user conference in Avignon this summer in France. It was really, really great. And actually, sometimes you listen to people describing a package about ecology, and you are like, yeah, but it could do the job also in pharmacovigilance. So they don't advertise it for pharmacovigilance, of course, because maybe they don't even know the existence of pharmacovigilance. But you can like, oh yeah, it can be repurposed, it can be used, and that's what I meant with cross fertilization. You see they face similar issues or building statistical models that would answer a similar question, and it can be repurposed, or visualizations. It's really evolving very fast, um, and it's always a bit complicated to know how would the question be best answered, through quantification or through visualization? I always tend to prefer quantification because it gives a definite answer and you can build like actions on it when it reaches a threshold. Visualization still relies a lot on people actually looking at data, and it can be, even if it's at an aggregate level, but it can be very quickly tedious with the dashboard always reviewing the same thing. But finding the right mixture, finding using the right visualizations, and finding the right quantification is always something you have to keep looking for the uh, best mix, and be ready to change depending on what has been developed somewhere else. So you keep looking.
Is there a lot of collaboration between pharmaceutical companies trying to build this space or understand which packages are best?
There are a lot of collaborations, but not yet in the pharmacovigilance space,
Mm.
unfortunately. You have it in the real world evidence. There is this very great initiative like Odyssey. So it's OHDSI. Um, and it's the new name. Before it was called OMOP. And like 10 years or more than 10 years ago, they built a common data model for all the different data source in real world evidence, should it be market scan or other claims database. And then they built methods on top of it. And it was really the big pharma companies collaborating together in building solutions, exchanging the code, making it open source. It was very great for real world evidence. They touch a little bit the pharmacovigilance because real world evidence and pharmacovigilance, sometimes they use similar data sources. It was a great effort, very, very nice, very well built. No funding, it's crazy. The amount
Mm.
of things they were able to achieve without funding, just the time and work of the different stakeholders, and having the same data and building the code and benefiting from it. It's really amazing. You can check it out. So it's OHDSI.org, I think. Maybe you can put some link to it. People will be interested. And they
Good idea.
released most of the algorithms in the open. So that was a good collaboration. Now they collaborate, as I told you in the beginning, for creating packages to create the ADAM and these SDTM datasets. There is great packages. I'm no more in the clinical trial field, so I couldn't really tell you the name, but I can
Mm.
I can give you the reference afterwards to put in the podcast if you want. So there are great collaborations. For pharmacovigilance, not so much, unfortunately. The biggest move forward I saw was the release of the most complicated disproportionality analysis method by two people from the FDA as a package. So it's
Mm.
OpenEBGM. So the method is the uh, multi-gamma Poisson shrinker, and the estimate is the EBGM, so empirical geometrical mean. And they released this algorithm, which was before um, something that only Oracle had. So
Mm.
Oracle hired Bill Dumichel, who was the developer of the method. He developed it in 1999, and they hired him, and somehow they were the only software company able to release this method. This method is not especially better than the three other methods, but FDA was using it, and pharma tends to get along with FDA. So if FDA is using it, must be good. Let's use the same thing that they are using. And FDA made the effort to build their own algorithm and release it in the open. It still puzzles me if it's an official move from the FDA, but the two provider, the two contributor of the package, put their FDA email address. So I think it's a sign. Normally, they should get the authorization from the FDA to publish. Normally, I suspect it's not clear, but that's one of the big shift, I would say, where they say, look, it's in R,
Mm.
we release it, and you can be software agnostic
Yeah.
using this if you want. And they release also the data in public, at least for VERS, which is kind of a big step because for the last 15 years we face so many questions with PII, what can we share? But for that amount of time, VERS data were made public by the FDA.
Mm.
And they anonymize it and so on. They do some stuff to protect PII. But it didn't kill this initiative of open data. So FDA provided open data for FAIRS, and they provided open algorithm in R. And it's not coming from the industry, but I think
Mm.
they show us somehow the way. Like the
Yeah.
data could be open, the algorithm could be open, and you could do the work. And I built a solution on top of it, on top of VERS, on top of FAIRS. I use the open EBGM. So the foundation is thanks to them. Otherwise, I would have no data at that time. I would have no data to build solution on top of it, right? So they show us the way. I just hope that in pharmacovigilance we are gonna pick it up the same way they did for real world evidence and clinical trials data. I think one of the reasons it's slower is because we have less programmers in this area. Simple as that. It's not tradition to have programmers. It's really recent to have. Or before there was none, just user of BI tools and things like that, but no real programmers. No, it comes. Or I am an anomaly. I don't know.
But it is interesting that an area that is so data heavy as
Yeah.
pharmacovigilance, that we have traditionally not have specific programmers for this space.
No, they were using softwares and BI tools on top of it, but not really programmers. No, I never experienced really. No, it's more. I use my skills of programmers when I was in pharmacoepidemiology, and pharmacoepidemiology is a field between epidemiology and pharmacovigilance. And it's not clear in each organization where pharmacoepidemiology should be in. Should it be in pharmacovigilance or in epidemiology? It depends on the company. But that's where you have more chance to find programmers because sometimes you have post-authorization safety studies or things like that, and you want to basically a bit like the programmers. You have your primary outcome and you want to see if there are differences between groups, and then you are similar activities, and then you start programming just to get the results of your study. But in pure pharmacovigilance, it's the run of the algorithm and generic reports that BI tools can do it. And I guess there was no specific needs, but it changes over time. And now it comes as a potential alternative to costly software. So they
Mm.
might invest more internally in some companies into some programming profiles.
In your mind and based on your understanding of where the pharmacovigilance technology space is moving, how do you think the technology landscape could look in a couple years from now?
Yeah, well, everyone is saying there's gonna be a shift with AI and machine learning and stuff. I think we witnessed some shift in terms of data entry. It helped somehow a little bit the machine learning and the AI. But for really activities of signal detection and finding some causal relationship, we still rely heavily on physicians doing their job and
Mm.
applying their expertise in distinguishing, okay, we can show them where there are abnormal data and robust abnormal
Mm.
data, not due to chance, that we can do to help them. And we can do it not only using a disproportionate number of reports, but maybe trying also to quantify other causality criteria and bringing in that to them. But we still rely on their expertise, and that's, I don't see it replaced anytime soon by machine learning. That would
Mm.
require a huge amount of data, a huge amount of training, and we don't have so many safety signals to train the algorithm on it. And we have to be ready for the new thing, which almost by definition is going to be different from what we witnessed in the past. When I was working on some pandemic vaccines at JSK, there was this safety issue with narcolepsy. Narcolepsy was nothing to be expected from what we learned 20 years before, 20 years of history. It was completely new in terms of safety issue or in terms of safety profile. So we have to be ready for something unexpected. And this machine learning, they learn from history. They don't learn
Mm.
to be ready for the unexpected, which is the role by definition of pharmacovigilance. So I very sound like old school. Maybe I'm getting old. I'm getting old, that's a fact, but maybe getting too old. But um, I think we can benefit from this new visualization by enhance. Um, what I see potentially, but I don't have indications of the industry going forwards or going into that direction, is the fact that most of the writing of the regulatory reports is still manual, and
Mm.
it kills me because we have now the tools like in Quarto, in R, to automate reportings in a very, very complex way potentially. So we are generating the table figures and listings, but we are still manually mapping them into in templates. And basically, what you have in R Markdown in Quarto is the ability really to almost automate everything that can be automated and leave the interpretation then to the expert, but feeding them with a pre-filled report already. Because most of the industry works with templates, but we are still somehow making someone controlling the template, someone generating the table figures and listings, someone copy pasting in there, someone doing the quality check that
Mm.
it's been copy
Yeah.
pasted at the right place by the right person at the right time, when all of that could be a programming activity which has been validated.
Mm.
But I don't see really evidence of the industry going forwards in that direction. But for me, when I saw R Markdown, I was trying to do something artisanally with SAS and Word. It was awful. At the time, I was happy because I saw it typing that automatically, but it was really amateur. But what Quarto is providing, um, for me, it could be a game changer. But I
Mm.
don't see the industry completely reshuffling their medical writing team, their programming team, and just merging it, saying, let's adapt to the technology. Now we have the tools, we have the data, we have the
Yeah.
template, we can see it as a programming activity. We're going to generate it with one flow of activity. And then, of course, we need interpretation. It's very important. We don't produce just templates and we have to interpret the data. But instead of wasting people with a PhD copy pasting stuff and with silly instructions on where to copy and stuff, we could
Yep.
hand them over the pre-filled templates, and then they could start interpreting, drawing conclusion, having discussion sections, and really making the best out of the data and the template. I would like the industry to go in that direction, but I'm not aware of much initiatives going in that direction, unfortunately, despite Quarto. And I'm not sure even at our studio, I'm not sure they realize the potential of Quarto, because I was discussing at this conference in Avignon, telling them, you see, all the industry is working on templates, and you have a nice way to fill this
Mm.
Markdown is just a template where you put some codes where it's going to generate the right statistics. You can even make the text conditional to the
Mm.
threshold you obtain, and then you can fill that all automatically. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know if the commercial are really selling that as a solution for the pharma industry. So maybe the pharma industry has to guess and see the potential, but it would be nice some initiatives, global initiatives, saying let's investigate if
Mm.
these templates that we all have can we have the same one across the industry, and then can we build the code because they have the same structure of data. It's Adam SDTM everywhere. Most of them have Argus,
Mm.
spontaneous report data. So we have the same data, we have the same template, but each of us is building a different solution or is doing it manually. So I would invest in that instead of trying to find a use of AI, which is the wrong way to do it. Normally, anyway. But
No, I like that, and that is so specific and something we could, well, both as individual companies and as an industry do today.
mhm.
Um, and for me, it's sometimes as if we forget that the reports we have now, someone also invented them at some point. They're not like
Yeah,
physical laws of nature.
yeah, and I guess they could be adapted if we tell the regulatory authorities, look, if we change slightly, it can be automated. Would you agree? Maybe they are just open to the idea, and it could make sense also. But yeah, yeah.
That's definitely a big potential that's on the table there. And I have some Googling to do after this conversation for sure.
Okay. Yeah, Quarto, but I don't know if you know, but Quarto is really something to investigate from R. It's really with a lot of potential, I think.
Yeah, I have not encountered it before, so maybe some of it is also just sharing that perspective that look here, dear industry, we can actually do this already now,
Yeah.
and start looking into it. Well, this ties beautifully into the next question I would like to ask. That's the question that we always ask our guests on the show. If we gave you a magic wand, and with that wand you could change one thing in the life sciences industry, what would you wish to change?
But it's easy to answer for me. It's open data. I wish they release clinical trial data in the open after, so all the SDTM and ADAM data sets. The same thing for the spontaneous report database. They advocate, no, it's crazy, we cannot do it because, for example, for vaccines, it's gonna feed the anti-vaccine movement. But look, FDA, CDC released theirs. How is it gonna be different if the company release also their own product? It includes their products. It includes all products. So I think that could be a big change. For example, to develop solutions, we need data. Um, and for example, for clinical trial data, it's a bit puzzling because I don't find them. I looked, maybe I looked poorly, but I looked several times on Google and I just found a few very small data sets. And I wanted to test some visualizations and for safety purposes and stuff like that. I can't find, but I cannot assess how robust they are against the different SDTM standards. So sometimes it's not always exactly the same. Sometimes there are some variations and stuff. So they don't release really in the open. I think it prevents building open source solution when you don't release it. If they were to release at least, I don't know, after 5 years or 3 years or something like that, it would help. I know there is the clinicaltrial.gov, but
Mm.
I didn't see really the SDTM or the ADAM. You can find the clinical study report or stuff like that. But I mean, that would be that would be good. We could, combine them together for different purposes. We talk a lot about transparency, the fact that pharma industry wants to be more transparent. That would be a very big signal about
Mm.
transparency, saying, yeah, our data are in the open now. And more journals, they now require the data to be along
Mm.
with the study
Yes.
results.
Yeah.
So maybe that's gonna change also the way, because more and more they require to have the data as an addendum. So that might that might build a bridge to release the data in the open more structurally, maybe centralized somewhere. That would definitely help instead of finding them in every journal or every appendix. But that's what I would change. Yeah, open data. And then the magic will happen. People will find data and they will build stuff on top of it. So that's what I would change.
That could cascade a whole load of changes if that
Yeah.
one thing was to change.
Yeah. See, if I have one thing to change, let's try to change the one at the top that's gonna cascade down.
Well, Lionel, if our listeners want to reach out to you and ask further questions or learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
There is my website, so opensourcepv.com, and otherwise you can reach out by email. So it's Lionel dot van Holle, so my name with dot arrobas opensourcepv.com, and then it would be my pleasure to follow up this conversation with you or others. Really, and thanks for the opportunity. Very
And
much
thank you so much for
appreciate it.
coming. This was a
Yeah,
super
yeah.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you.